Great. Thank you very much, Natalie. And I hope everyone's able to hear me nice and loud and clear. And thanks for the very kind introduction. My name is Paul Gallagher, one of the global accessibility leaders at Procter& Gamble. I'm coming to you live today from London in the UK, but you might be able to hear from my voice that I'm from Ireland originally. Today I'm wearing a black jumper and I've got dark brown hair and a mustache. I'm going to be telling you all about driving accessibility through policy and P&G's accessibility journey today. I want to bring you on that journey. I'm going to talk to you about what we care about at P&G, a little bit about what we've done to advance that mission, and really what we're continuing to do. For us at P&G, accessibility is very much a journey, and it's one that we've been on for quite a while now, and we're continuing to learn about and continuing to work on. You know, the things that we work on at P&G, what we deliver at P&G is a lot of branded products for use in households every day. And our purpose, values, and principles at P&G are really what guide us in the work that we do. We provide branded products and services of superior quality that improve the lives of the world's consumers. And really, that's what we want to do by bringing accessibility into the work that we do every day. We think about how do our consumers use our products, how do they find them for the whole life cycle of that product. And we really want to make it as useful to everybody as possible. So accessibility is really just a natural part of the work that we do, but it's again something that we need to remind everybody to include in their work on a day-to-day basis. And the way we do that at P&G is by focusing on three pillars: our employees, our brands, and our partners and communities. And within these three pillars, there's some obvious work to be done to make sure that people are included and that nobody is excluded. We're committed to creating this inclusive world in each of those verticals. And that's how I'm going to break down what I'm talking about today. And then sort of bring it all back together at the end to tell you kind of some of the tools and some of the processes that we use to think about inclusivity and accessibility in all of these pillars. So if I think about our employees, you know, one of the key drivers of the work that we do in terms of accessibility is coming from our non-discrimination policy. And it states that P&G is committed to providing equal opportunities employment to all and will not discriminate against any individuals on the basis of a whole load of things, including disability. And that gives us, as employees, the right to, you know, challenge our leaders or point out inefficiencies or point out accessibility barriers in anything related to our employees. So again, we think about the full life cycle of an employee. You know, how does an employee find P&G? How do they apply? How are they recruited? How do they go through the interview process? And then the longest part of that work during their career, how do they gain access to all of the things that every other employee does? So how do we make sure every part of the work is barrier-free as much as possible? So for our hiring initiatives, not only do we try and ensure that our recruitment processes are all accessible, but we also try and actively seek to expand the number of people with disabilities in our workforce through various recruitment programs. Because we understand that the value of a workforce that represents all of the diversity of our consumers outside. We want those diverse opinions and insights to make our products more robust and to make sure that at the end of the day, the products we're creating serve the consumers that are buying them. Additionally, in our workplaces, we use universal design to make sure that our offices are somewhere that everybody can turn up and have a safe and enjoyable work day. So we embed all of these accessibility insights into the various functions that make P&G work. So for our facilities and workplace teams, for our HR teams, and indeed our global design team are looking at all of these things that make our workplaces work for P&Gers every day. We accept feedback through various forms, and we're encouraging all of our employees to point out things that are not working, as well as systemically looking to find those things ourselves. So one of the key examples was a change to the entryway to our headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we had big, heavy doors that were really just difficult for everybody to get in to the building, and have replaced them with automatic doors. Obviously ramps instead of stairs, and tactile maps in some of our buildings. We're always trying new features and getting feedback from all of our employees. And one that's been really popular, not only with people who are neurodiverse, but also with our general employee population, is including different areas within our offices, whether they be for highly stimulating or quiet or low stimulus areas for people to focus and do work. We also look a lot on our digital space internally. And I'll talk a bit about that more as we talk about our external communications in the digital space. But similarly, we look at all of the tools and software that our employees are using and try and optimize that and make sure it's accessible. And particularly a lot of our web-based digital platforms that our employees will be using, ensuring that they're compliant with WCAG. I wanted to share a quick video with you all around some of the work that we're doing in our buildings and some of the employee-led advances that are being made with this example from the Reading Innovation Centre.
P&G Reading's Buildings for All campaign. The Gillette flag flies high at Reading 1 campus.
We've always kept people safe at P&G.
Anna Cathaya, Site Operations and HSE.
But I think my light bulb moment was that's not the same as being inclusive. That opened my eyes.
Current site demonstrates poor access to site.
I started walking around the site, looking at where we did have things that might be less inclusive.
Shelley Duggan, Brand Protection.
The Buildings for All initiative at Reading is really about ensuring that we have the physical site that will allow people with any disability to go about in the same way that able-bodied people would be able to.
Colleagues use an adjustable height meeting table. Textured sign for tactical navigation.
I have an eye condition called macular degeneration. It's the leading cause of blindness in the developed world.
Joe Mangan, Quality Assurance.
The main accommodation that's benefited me on site to help with my sight loss is really being the decal stickers that are placed on the rotary glass doors.
By scanning her keycard, a colleague can safely enter through a revolving glass door that has decals on it.
So previous to that, it was really difficult for me to tell when the doors were moving.
I'm autistic and I've got ADHD.
Alison Foster, Shave Care R&D.
I can't concentrate if there's movement around or if there's lots of smells around. So somewhere where I'm kind of sat near a corner where it's quiet, where there's not a lot going on visually, really helps me to focus and concentrate.
A room with warm lighting and armchairs allow for quiet focus work.
This one has a neurological disorder movement.
Misbah Garfor, Shave Care R&D.
I might potentially end up in a wheelchair, and on the site new ramps are being put in place to have wheelchair accessibility.
A shaftless elevator descends for a colleague.
I'm super excited at the moment about the NaviLens wayfinding app that we are trialling on site.
Jo finds a huddle room with her smartphone.
It means for the first time I'll be able to find my way independently to the many huddle rooms, many meeting rooms that we have.
It's really important that organisations have inclusive buildings. We wouldn't want to be in a position to find a fantastic person who could do a job amazingly and then find, oh, well, we can't even get them in the building.
What I think other leaders can learn from the work that we're doing here at Reading is to really listen to people with disabilities that they have working with them, because those are the people that will see the problems with the site.
In a huddle room, stools that are easy to move provide wheelchair access.
People can demonstrate their allyship by understanding the fact that everyone around us is different and therefore they might have different needs.
You know, join a PWD network in your local area, your local site, or even just wear a purple ribbon on December the 3rd to show that you were there to support others.
When I first had this idea and I started talking to people about the idea, there was no, oh, how much is this going to cost, and no hesitancy. It was very much, how do we do this? How do we do it bigger? How do we do it faster? Which I think for me was just proud of the place we work and the company we work for.
We passed P&G's Lead with Love campaign poster.
We've come a long way in 12 months, but we've got further to go.
P&G Reading's buildings.
So that's a bit about our employees. I wanted to move on and talk about our brands. And obviously our brands are a cornerstone of all of the work that we do. That's the reason that P&G exists, providing consumer packaged goods to all of our consumers globally. And without them being accessible, really, there's no point for P&G to exist. So all of our products go through a lot of research and development to formulate the product and make sure that it's suitable for use and really develops or delivers a premium experience for the consumer. And this applies also to our packaging. Though I would say that we're on more of a journey to ensure that our packaging is fully accessible to our consumers. Though now we're including accessibility in the full life cycle of the product. Like I said, from discovery to use to disposal. And here you'll see an example of early tactile markings that we were putting pictured here on the end of two Herbal Essences bottles in North America. And we started including tactile markings so consumers who are blind or visually impaired, or indeed somebody with bubbles in their eyes or soap in their eyes when they're showering, would be able to tell the difference between shampoo or conditioner. And as I said, this is an early stage version of our tactile markings, because you'll see here some other examples. And in the center of this slide on accessible packaging, the evolution of our tactile markings. In the center of this slide, you've got the Head & Shoulders Bare bottle, and at the top of the bottle on the back, towards the neck of the bottle where the cap is, you'll see those four tactile markings, 4 tactile stripes indicating that this is shampoo. And there's an Olay body wash bottle beside it that has one line indicating cleaning and for your one body, so it's a body wash. And similarly pictured, you see those stripes for shampoo and circles or dots for conditioner, so you can tell the two similarly shaped bottles apart. Tactile markings are something that we're bringing to more of our products, and we even have it on our laundry detergent pods across Europe. The symbol for our laundry detergent is a square with a circle inside it, representing a laundry washing machine, and lines underneath it representing cleaning. And that's on that box in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, the Ariel Pods box. Above it, we have a fairy liquid bottle that a user doesn't need to turn upside down. They don't need to open a cap, and it's really easy to squeeze it. So you can dispense the correct amount. And this is, all of our products are being tested for people with dexterity issues, people who have cognitive issues. So we're testing many different versions of these products to see which work best for the majority of consumers. And on the far right-hand side, we've got a picture of a Pampers baby dry nappies or diapers. And you'll see at the bottom left-hand corner of that, it's actually got a NaviLens code. That NaviLens code allows for a blind or visually impaired consumer, or indeed anybody with a smartphone, the NaviLens smartphone app, to scan that code and find and locate the product on shelf, or learn more about the product. And we're particularly interested in this for blind and visually impaired consumers, because this code scans within an instant, at oblique angles and at a distance. It allows those consumers to shop independently and find the product on shelf. And we're trialing NaviLens on many products across different regions. So you look out for it in store on Ariel or or Pampers, or indeed Pantene as well. I want to share with you a quick video about our tactile marking that's come to Head and Shoulders. And the person in this video is Sam Latif, our global accessibility leader for Procter & Gamble. She actually approached the company back at probably about 10 years ago with the idea of these tactile markings. And now we continue to see these tactile markings expanding. And I'd like you to hear her story about how we're including it.
Head and Shoulders is launching something huge. The bare minimum.
Why did Head and Shoulders Bare, the new anti-dandruff shampoo with minimal ingredients and 45% less plastic, introduce tactile stripes on their new bottle? According to the World Health Organization, 440 million people have low or no vision. That means 440 million people like me are unable to read the label and easily identify the product that they're using. The addition of these tactile stripes means that now we can independently touch the product and know that it's shampoo. S for stripes, S for shampoo. These markings are built into the mould. It demonstrates Head and Shoulders' efforts to bake accessibility into product packaging from the outset. Thank you, Head and Shoulders, for giving me and people like me the tactile touch of confidence.
So as you can see, this is a journey. P&G have many different products that we're trying to bring tactile markings to. It takes a long time to manufacture the molds and introduce this into artwork on our various products in all of the regions globally, but it's something that we're working towards, and I hope you keep an eye out for this on Head and Shoulders and many of our other brands when you're in store. So the third pillar is our communication as part of our brands. And really, we look at this in two different ways when we're talking about our products, our advertising and our digital advertising. With our advertising on TV and video format, we're really trying to drive audio description and closed captioning. And to do that, we've had to influence a lot of our delivery partners, our broadcasting platforms and hosting partners for our video content. Some traditional broadcasting media haven't had audio description available in all markets, or indeed closed captioning either. So where closed captioning isn't available, we've been trying to opt for open captioning. And where audio description wasn't available, we're working with them to see whether they can turn that functionality on. And I'm pleased to say that many of our partners have been working with us on this and have started enabling audio description where it previously wasn't. And not only benefiting our advertising, but also all of our competitors and other brands that are communicating via those platforms. You know, when P&G are working on things on accessibility, similar to our, you know, us being here today, we don't see this as a as something that we would, you know, not want to share. We want to share this message with all of our with everybody in the industry. And similar to our tactile markings, for example, you know, we're open to others in the industry adopting the same markings, so this can become a universal language. So we're striving to work on our audio description and closed captions. And on the digital side of things, we're adopting WCAG, obviously the Web Consortium's accessibility guidelines. And we're doing this in a number of ways. We're making sure that automated testing and manual testing are being executed on all of our digital platforms. And that manual testing is a combination of internal and external testing, including testing by people with disabilities as well. On our advertising side, I wanted to share a quick example of where audio description really comes into play for our advertising. And this first version of the video is blurred out, so you cannot see what's going on. And you'll understand someone with a visual impairment or who is blind really would struggle to get the full concept of this video without the audio description. So let me just play this example here.
Call someone.
I
can't unlock my phone. What do you mean you can't unlock your phone? It doesn't recognize my face. I've been using Olay. It has totally transformed my skin. 28 days ago, I looked like that. That's bananas. That's you.
Your skin's...
So this example, I mean, is very difficult to understand what's going on at all. There's screaming in the background. There's for the first section of the video, and there's very little dialogue. When there is dialogue, it doesn't really explain what the screaming was about or what's happening. So let me just share with you the audio described version of this.
Villain stands in the rain watching a couple. The lights flicker and go out. Suddenly, the villain is inside their house. The couple runs screaming into the bedroom, locking the door. The villain searches for them while the woman picks up her phone.
I can't unlock my phone. What do you mean you can't unlock your phone? It doesn't recognize my face.
She's Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I've been using Olay. It has totally transformed my skin. 28 days ago, I looked like that.
She points at a photo.
It's bananas. That's you.
The villain jumps on the bed.
Your skin's glowing. You could be a movie star.
Really?
I mean that.
No.
So obviously this video, this advert is a bit of fun, playing on some sort of a villain or murderer entering this couple's home. But it's set like a horror movie with a lot of, dramatic music, but very little dialogue. So without the audio description of seeing that, stormy night and the dark situation where the couple are running upstairs, avoiding this villain, it really is difficult to get the full grasp of it. So we're encouraging all of our brands to deliver advertising with audio description and also closed captioning in all markets. And as I've mentioned, not only just on traditional TV, but also in our digital channels as well, online, and our advertising online. For our digital, our websites and our apps, we've been making a whole host of changes to ensure that our sites and our apps are WCAG compliant. And this journey has been another one where policy has been a huge help for us at P&G. We keep referring back to our policies to drive action. And in particular, digital one was one that I was a big part of. I realized that our websites were a huge of huge benefit to all of our consumers, but there was a gap for people with disabilities, that our websites were not WCAG compliant. And really, this became even a bigger issue when our websites, were our web stores. So people wanted to buy our products if they felt that they didn't want to purchase them in store or in a physical location, and they wanted to purchase them online, but they couldn't actually use our websites to do that. So P&G really, when this insight came to us, they realized that this was, against, what we wanted, or it was against our core purpose, values, and principles that we operate by. We weren't giving an equitable experience to some consumers due to the way our websites were coded. And this led to our digital accessibility policy at P&G. And it wasn't an overnight, yes, let's go and do that. But it was everybody that we spoke to when this insight was delivered was like, oh, that's, news to us. We didn't realize that, how can we ensure that our consumers get the same access to information and services that we're providing to everybody? So that journey really was about researching the problem for us and understanding, what was the barrier, what were the barriers to entry, how could we look at our assets and improve them? What would be the impact of a policy that ensured digital accessibility? How would we go about understanding the landscape of all of our assets? How would we go about understanding what needed to be fixed? How would we staff that? Would we need budgets? Would we need tooling? And how would we continue to ensure that that policy was adhered to? And these were the questions that we really started asking ourselves. And I'm glad to say that, eventually that policy was brought in, and it continues to be a journey that P&G are working on. We're striving for complete WCAG compliance, but we've got many sites across our portfolio in every country, somewhere in excess of 1,500 websites globally. And if you think about the promotions that we're working on, we might be doing a 1-month promotion on Pantene hair care in Thailand, and then we might be doing a new launch of a product for Oral-B in France, and then a new Crest toothpaste in the States. And all of these sites are going live and coming down, and they're all being run by different teams. And indeed, we've got a lot of partners and agencies. So where this policy comes in helpful is, we're able to stop inaccessible content from launching in the first place. We're able to ask our purchases contacts when we're recruiting a development agency or an advertising agency to ensure that WCAG compliance or compliance to our digital accessibility policy is included in that procurement with our vendors. And it allows us to constantly reinforce and enforce that WCAG is a requirement for our ongoing assets. So any websites that are around can be audited at any point. And if issues are found, they have the teams that own them have a window in which they must fix them before further action is taken. And I would say the biggest challenge in this space is really, educating and helping people understand what it is that they need to do, what it is, what the barrier is for the consumer. Because a lot of people, when they think about a website, they don't realize how it may work or may not work for different consumers, and in particular, people with disabilities. And when that is pointed out to those people owning those assets, we found the journey to be a lot easier, and one that they really wanted to get on board with and are continually trying to strive for higher scores in their accessibility scorecards. Some examples of the work that we've done that you would think are huge examples. Our Pampers websites, for example, weren't meeting the color contrast requirements for WCAG, and they updated those. I mean, Pampers is P&G's largest brand, in excess of $20 billion a year. Getting them to change their brand colors is no small feat, but Pampers was really dedicated to ensuring that all of our consumers were having a great experience on their digital platforms. I won't talk to you about the details of the other examples that are on screen, but we're adhering to all of the WCAG requirements. So, explaining around alternative text to our brand owners, how we need to be more descriptive. We don't repeat the same content that's on screen in text already, and making all of our experiences accessible via screen readers or navigable by keyboard, and demonstrating that was really key to getting their buy-in. Our approach, like I mentioned already, but I want to reiterate because this is really my last slide before we start getting answering some of your questions. But this applies to not only our digital, but also our employee and our product development, as well as our advertising. And it's really about researching what is the gap today. So we do our upfront work and then our continuous. And in our upfront, we really research the problem. We're trying to understand what consumers are being excluded or what a consumer needs from us, whether it's our product or our employees in the workplace. We've leveraged inspirational leadership. You heard from our global accessibility leader, Sam Latif, earlier on Head & Shoulders Bare, but her leadership has really led to many of the leaders across the company paying attention to what needs to happen and getting those insights of people with disabilities directly to our global leadership of each of our brands, and everybody making decisions on a daily basis has been super helpful to driving the accessibility work across P&G. We've used experiential immersion, and really that's just workshops where we make sure that leaders are focused on experiencing their own products, their own advertising, their own digital experiences from the perspective of someone with a disability. And we take them on that journey to show them how that impacts their product and their consumer experience. That leads to the policies that ensure protection and inclusion of all of our consumers and indeed our employees. That policy then allows us to bake those requirements into our procurement processes. It allows us to ensure that anything that we're bringing into the company is accessible, and challenging anything that isn't. And then we look at the staffing and tooling to monitor and adhere to that policy. It's one thing to say the policy is in place, but it's a totally other task to ensure that we continually check that we're doing the right thing, and that we're making sure all of our experiences are accessible. And then that the continuous piece, we find that communication of the policy and the impact is really key. We are constantly educating our workforce around why they need to include accessibility into their research and development, including people with disabilities in their research panels, including people with disabilities into their testing. Then we offer a lot of training. And one of the biggest uses of my time is really customizing that training to the audience that I'm talking to. If we're talking to a hair care team, we might want to really give some, strong examples of those consumers and the issues that they face. Or our fem care brands, using Always, for example. How does a consumer, use the feminine care product through its entire life cycle journey, if they are blind or visually impaired, if they have dexterity issues, and trying to bring those insights to those research and development professionals that are building those products and those marketeers to understand how that message is being communicated and being received by our consumers. And then we use a lot of scorecards to try and drive that continuous improvement and the continuous baking of accessibility into that product life cycle or the communication life cycle. Scorecards, we find, backed by policy, are really a great way of driving adoption. It's almost gamifying accessibility from an internal point of view, because we really play our different business units off each other to strive for higher levels of accessibility across their entire portfolio. And then finally, evolution. We're always looking to go back to that research piece and understand, is there something new that we should be doing? Is listening to our consumer feedback, which we always encourage. How do we ensure that we're using the greatest technology to identify more accessibility outages? And then how do we continually go back through that whole cycle and improve our policy, improve our staffing and tooling, and then ultimately improve our products and our packaging and our communication? So that was a quick insight into what P&G are doing, the journey that we're on. Like I said, we're definitely not there yet. Accessibility is an ongoing process, and we're very aware of that. But it's one that P&G is fully embraced, and we're continuously learning on. So I'd love to hear any questions that you have, and hopefully, Natalie, I think you're rejoining me to bring those to everybody else as well.
I am. Thank you so much for that, Paul. As an avid user of Head & Shoulders, I thank you massively, because I always have shampoo in my eyes. So very, very grateful for your implementations here. And it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job, thinking about all the different areas of accessibility, not just digital. So really, really commendable, and great to see your videos there. So we do have quite a few questions, and the chat has been going off. So I'm going to pop a few over to you here. I'm just finding the most upvoted ones. So thank you everyone for voting on these as well. So my first question is from Neil. He says that his org is about to enact an accessibility policy for his services and products. And one obstacle that they're finding is that the policy allows for exceptions. Did your policy have exceptions? And how would you encourage teams to not seek exceptions and embrace the challenge? Great question.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, and definitely one that is close to my heart. I think it's actually a good thing to have some form of a exception route, but my advice is to make it extremely difficult to attain a full exception. I think, in the world of accessibility, 100% accessibility is almost impossible to get to, and I think that's okay. I think communicating with that team to understand exactly, first, let me take a step back. Definitely, I think it's okay to have an exception policy, but make it difficult, right? Make it so that when people are getting to that exception, they're rereading the policy, they're rereading the impact of having an exception, and then have it so there's a level of leadership buy-in that needs to be gained before that exception can be granted. So we have a very senior leadership as part of that approval process. And actually, we don't even have them as part of the process. They have them that in that business unit that might be requesting it, a senior leader must be the one to request the exception. So it's really, it's them that's saying, okay, I'll make it up. One of our brands says, oh, for this website, we cannot attain. And we provide a draft of that exception request. And in that, we clearly state, that the leader is accepting that they're excluding various audiences. And we also say that the exception is time bound. So we don't give a limitless amount of time for the exception to be there. We ask for an action plan as well as part of it. So there's a way of having the exception, but not allowing it to go on forever. And also, we find that even though people are saying, oh, we will get an exception, through all of the other things, the other policies we have in place, people often don't request it. They might ask for it, then they'll read the documentation and the process around the exception, and then say, actually, do you know what? It would be easier to go and fix the issue in the first place.
Excellent. That's great advice. And you were talking there about leadership buy-in, and we had a question from Lisa. So she was just asking, how did you get leadership buy-in? Was that difficult? How did you tackle that? Was it from the ground up, or did you have a leader for accessibility?
Yeah. Well, we do have a leader for accessibility, and that's Sam Latif, who was in the Head and Shoulders video. And she, for many years, has been campaigning on this internally at P&G. The real breakthrough for getting our leadership engaged were those experiential workshops. We called them the Disability Challenge, actually, a few years ago. But we run many different versions of it continually. And essentially, it was getting our global lead team into a room, blocking off a half a day, and showing them our brands and our communications through the eyes of someone with disability, and through many different forms of disability as well. And really getting those consumer insights from people with disabilities around the struggles that they had with our products or our packaging, et cetera, et cetera. And when people started to see that, it wasn't a hard sell, when they understood it. It's just that a lot of these insights are not shown to our leaders. So when they saw those insights, it was quite an easy sell. That really, I suppose, the question, or as was highlighted in the Reading workplace video, they said, oh, how do we go and do this now? The only problem is it's not an overnight fix in many cases, right? So one of the key things that also helped us was having that plan, and that was alluded to in one of my last slides there, researching the problem very well ahead of trying to convince your leaders. Because if you convince your leaders and then you don't have a plan, you're going to end up doing more work. So do as much work as possible up front to identify those the opportunities within your organization, then convince your leaders and have the plan ready to go. Because you'll always get the questions, how much is it going to cost, or when can it be done, or what are, so having the answers to those questions up front will really help you.
Excellent advice. Like you say, awareness is key, and helping to people understand that normally unlocks so many doors, definitely. So another one that we've got here around the tactile markings on the shampoo and conditioner. They wanted to know, this is Alison and Amanda, who both were commenting on each other's. They wanted to know if this was a generally accepted system, meaning would non-P&G brands use the same markings, or is there like a universal system for this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we went with a tactile system, or we invented this tactile system that's still expanding. And we have protected the design of it, but we want it to be open source in a way that other brands can use it. So we want this to become the de facto language, and not for a fee or any profit. But the reason we protected it is so we could have the design become a universal language. We didn't use Braille because knowledge of Braille is quite low. And we wanted something really simple for those small interactions, just to, as a reinforcement to understand, you know, oh, I'm touching the product and I can just run my finger across it to feel what it is. We are aware that, you know, awareness of this is low at the moment, and we're only bringing it to more and more products. So the Olay body wash, for example, in the States is only coming to market, and now I was over in the States last week and I saw that actually the markings are on herbal essences and Head and Shoulders and some of our other Head and Shoulders bottles as well. So we want more awareness. We're trying to drive that, but again, it's a relatively open standard, and we want others to adopt it as well. And we want people to share the conversation around it, so more and more people can find out about it.
Yeah, I love that. Like, you're giving back to that as well and helping that become a sustainable thing. That's really cool. I've got another question here from Katie. She was asking if you can give an example of the type of scorecards that you utilize when you're doing that work. She'd love to hear more examples about how you gamify accessibility for your teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, P&G is made up of 10 different categories of products, and they almost operate like companies within the company. So hair care being one, laundry being another, feminine care being another. And that allows us to easily sort of, you know, have different players within a game. So for our websites, for example, we look at a scorecard combination. Each asset or each website, like pampers.com, would be assessed on its automated accessibility score, its manual score, and that's something we do out of various tools. So we have tooling for automated testing. We do our own manual testing internally. We do external testing with people with disabilities, and each of these we assign a score to. I've seen many different ways of doing it. You can identify your different buckets of error or issue according to WCAG. You can classify them as, you know, blocker or barrier or critical to minor, and using that then define your policy and put that in a scorecard. Maybe a 100-page website can have an automated score of, you know, 0 issues, but your manual testing can have, you know, some blockers, maybe 0 blockers, but some less critical issues. So define that and what works for your organization. Just because you define it today doesn't mean you can't come back in a year's time after great progress and change it, and then put it on in a weekly scorecard and show progress to congratulate organizations that are doing well. And it'll be pretty obvious when there's been no movement in other organizations. And I think for us, you know, rolling those scores up of each of the individual assets to an organization works. So maybe if you don't have different organizations like that in your company, you could use country combinations or brand combinations, or I don't know, something like that, or show progress over releases.
Yeah, perfect. Divide it up by the teams that are working on it,
exactly.
However they're aligned. Yeah, so they can help them. Awesome. That's really good advice. So we've got 5 minutes, so a couple more questions. So Tilly asked, what advice do you have for employees who want to raise their hand and help make this kind of change happen, like the video that you showed us with the Gillette office, especially since we were saying cost and budget constraints likely often the first blocker that's put in their way. How did P&G's employees overcome that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways of doing that. One, not everything has to have a cost. So when you're preparing that plan to share with leadership, or with your facilities teams, give them options that are easy to do with no investment as well. That will help sort of start the ball rolling and build momentum around the work that you're trying to do. I think one example of that is, educating people in your workplace that by not resetting your meeting room back to its original setup, It's going to impact people who are blind or visually impaired. They may not realize that the chairs are out of sync. Going into an extremely messy meeting room, it can also be quite challenging for various people with who are neurodiverse. So educating people to being aware of the different disabilities and how they may be impacted by the setup of an environment is really key, because you're then building awareness in the entire organization. And building awareness is free. You can do your own research and present it and educate people. But as to doing physical changes, I think getting specific user feedback from individuals that are impacted, or highlighting the fact that if we don't make these changes, our office will be inhospitable to future recruits that may have challenges. I think that really shows your leadership that you're thinking about this in a holistic way. Also, putting that investment on a plan, maybe you can spread it out over time and say, oh, we'll only need, this in this year, and we'll get this distance on the journey. Because the other risk is if you say, oh, we'll do this all for $100,000 or whatever it is, and it'll be done. That is not the message you want to set with your leadership, because we might be finding new things down the road, so it's not a one and done. So by sharing a plan that you identify the various different items on, and say, putting in space for doing more research and getting more feedback, and showing that this is something that doesn't really end, will also be important in that journey.
Yeah, thinking about your longevity, your sustainability, like you say, having new people come in as well. I think that's something that you sometimes don't factor in as well. How does this work for the next generation as such? So that's really cool. Yep. We've got 2 minutes left, so I think we've got time for one really quick question. Cool. So it's again from Tilly, but it was upvoted a lot, and I think it's a really good question. Just what guidance do you have for us about enforcing accessibility policies, particularly with third parties, especially those that P&G are very reliant on for delivering products and customer experiences? So any advice?
Well, yeah, I think the key is obviously, we can only enforce what is in a contract. And we wouldn't try, P&G obviously wouldn't want to try and do something that's not fair and the right thing to do. And similarly, so I think the best way of ensuring accessibility in something that your partners or your vendors are delivering is including it in the brief or in the purchase order contract, whatever sort of mechanism you have in your own company. That way, it's very clear to all parties from the outset that accessibility is something that's going to be measured and followed up on. But again, I think one of the best ways to do it is to really show them the human experience of it and get their buy-in on all levels, whether it be financial or contractual, but also on the emotional level, and show them, that this is something that really impacts people. I'm sure, most people know somebody with a disability, and they wouldn't want that person to have that experience. So that's how we do it at P&G. It works quite well. It does mean that if the procurement safeguard is not in place already, it might take more time to get there, and it might be slightly more expensive. But I often find that there's a way of doing something in the meantime or in the interim before the fully new contract is in or something like that. There's always an opportunity to continually improve versus going from 0 to 100 in one step.
Definitely do it incrementally. 100%. Right. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. Really good session. A friendly reminder to everyone that you can continue the conversation on our community Discord.